Hey, what's going on? Happy New Year. Welcome to another episode of ngAir. We are getting into our 6th year of ngAir. Crazy, can't believe it. This is nuts, but we're pretty excited. We got a cool episode to start off the year for everybody. We're going to be talking about and checking out a new library for helping us doing async resolvers. It should be pretty cool. Looking forward to hearing more and learn more about that. So why don't we just get this thing started? We'll say hi to our panelists, and then we'll meet our guests, and then we'll get to the content. Joining us today, we've got Alyssa. Alyssa, what's going on?
Hello. It is so good to be here. I'm very excited for the first show of 2020.
2020, kicking it off. Bonnie's with us. Bonnie, how's it going?
It's going great. Great. Good to be here. And I'm excited about our guest tonight.
All right. I called on you last. Do you want to introduce our guest?
Yeah, it's Iliya. Iliya is a good friend of ours who's been around for a while and is a super fun person and super smart. Iliya, what are you going to teach us some cool stuff tonight? Iliya, is this your first time on ngAir?
No.
No, it's
You've
not.
been on a couple times.
This is the second.
12.
No,
This is your 12th. No, it's not.
No, it's
He's
the
an old
second.
pro.
It's been on ngAir more than me, man.
Yeah, we are very excited to have you back. Last time you were on, we were talking persistent state management with using query params, right? And the library that you have created for that.
Yes, I am still. I still haven't upgraded it. I want to bring some new functionality into it, but I don't have a lot of free time. So yeah, should I present myself and just start or what?
Yeah.
Okay, so
start. What are you working on?
Hello, my name
What
is
have you
Iliya.
done for us lately, Iliya?
Yeah, so my name is Iliya. What I've done lately is this library that I'm going to be talking about today, but I do other stuff as well. So I'm a co-founder of this small company called HughGrant, and we develop web applications there. So most of the time we use Angular with Node.js. And I don't know, from time to time, I tackle really interesting problems and I develop these libraries, hoping that they'll be useful for somebody else except us. And I'm also a Google developer expert in Angular and web technologies. And yeah, maybe we're ready to start with the presentation, I guess.
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
Yeah, I do other stuff, but it's not important.
I do want to let everybody know too that that episode that we were talking about the last time you were on, you can go to ngAir.com, go to our YouTube channel, and you can check that out. It was a really good episode on that library for helping manage, keeping track of query params that come through our routes and managing those and having some observable experience with that. Really cool episode. So check that out. If you haven't checked it out yet, go back and after this episode, go back and watch that episode as well. So,
Finish watching this one first.
yeah, exactly. So async resolvers, you got some new solution to help us with that? Is that the deal?
Yeah, so pretty much the library focuses on resolving our data and allows us a kind of better way for resolving it because we have like a really big project that we're working on. It's basically for like a portal for managing off-grid systems. It's a really big and complex application. And we are hitting some really interesting how should I say problems, and this library actually helps us solving one of the problems or a few of the problems. And yeah, pretty much if you want, you can share my screen so I can like show what I'm talking about. So yeah, this is the library. This is the repository on my GitHub account, and pretty much I have I even included the link here, so I have the video. And today I'll be actually showing how we can use the library and why it actually exists. So first, I created this like really simple application. We have standard Angular CLI application. I've commented out some stuff because I'll be adding them in my demo, but the routing is very simple. We have this route that it's pretty much the default one and uses this user list component. And today I'll start with how usually resolvers in Angular work, why are they cool and why they aren't so cool. And then I'll continue with the library that I've created. So first, what are resolvers? The resolvers allow us to load data from the server, and before it's actually loaded, we don't enter the view. And this is not very nice because they're kind of blocking the navigation. And this is one of the reasons why I started thinking of alternatives of how we can resolve our data. So let's observe what a resolver is. So here we have like this user list resolver. What it does is it injects this user service, and inside it we're just calling the user service load users function, and we're actually returning it. So this means that whenever this load user successfully completes, we're going to enter the root, and probably we're going to present the user somewhere. And let's see how this handles inside our application. First, actually, I have to come here inside the routing, and I have to uncomment this line so I can connect the resolver with our application. And after that, I can just go to the view and see what's going to happen. So
Okay,
I'm
Iliya,
going to zoom in a little bit.
Can I jump in, because you jump in really fast? Can I just throw in one thing about resolvers that I found, because I work with a lot of clients that don't really pay any attention to resolvers. Did you talk at all about resolvers and lifecycle hooks and why resolvers are good off the bat?
Should I say why they're good? I didn't understand what you are asking.
Because I have a lot of people, I've run into so many people that just load stuff. I mean, do you guys think it's common sense, or do you think it's that we should talk about why we would use resolvers over just loading stuff in ng on init? Because I find so many people, if they don't know, if they haven't really gone through, like I went through, I learned about resolvers from Deborah Karada's awesome routing course, but there's so many that just load what they need in ng on init. So can you just, because you're just, I want to see everything that you're showing us. But can we talk about that for a second?
Sure. Of course, that's why after all you're here, so you can just ask me questions. From time to time I forget that these things are not obvious for other people.
So why would you use a resolver? Why wouldn't you just load it in ng on init?
I usually, when we are creating the components, we use the single responsibility principle. So for us, and I think for everyone, a component should not be responsible for loading data and doing other stuff than just managing the UI inside its template. And this is why I really like resolvers, just because they separate this logic and they put it in another place where it should be. And it's much easier when you have everything separated. I mean, it's much easier to debug. It's much easier to know where actually something is located. And I really dislike when people are actually loading stuff inside their ng on init or inside the constructors. I mean, it's just not, I think it's not the place where to put it. But if you're not having an application where you're actually using routing, probably this is the only, not the only, I mean, you can use my library, but probably this is the place where you can actually put the loading. But I really don't like, I mean, I really like to keep it very simple. Our components are actually just only getting stuff from our store and just connecting it to the UI, and nothing else usually is happening inside the components.
And it actually seems, I don't know if it's actually a performance improvement, but it definitely gives the illusion of better performance because it loads earlier in the DOM rendering process, right?
You mean the resolvers or which one?
The resolvers.
So I wouldn't say that it shouldn't be very different than the other way. I mean, it's just currently it's just a single responsibility principle. I mean,
so I want to add a little bit onto that too as well. Along with that single responsibility concept, is that inversion of control as well, right? It's taking and saying the component's not responsible for it. Let's invert that and say, let's hand the component what it needs, right? And we do that with services and things like that with constructor injection, right? We provide the component of these things. The same sort of concept of saying, hey, look, this component is going to need some data, but we're going to have something else get that data and then hand it to the component. So that way we can say, the component doesn't even care what gets that data, whether it's the route, whether it's some testing framework, whether it's Storybook. That inversion of control allows us to work with these individual pieces separately and contain that responsibility better. So that's, again, piggybacking on that, that's one of those benefits of the resolver, is that then you also can write classes, write code that handles the resolve logic that's specific just for that, right? So all it cares about is getting the data and then packaging that up and handing it off. So it's a little easier to maintain over time as well.
Yes, I think so as well. I mean,
I love
I agree.
resolvers.
Resolvers
It does keep everything neat and tidy.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you haven't looked into resolvers, go and check them out. I mean, they're very useful, and I think that every Angular developer should know what resolvers are. I mean, it's just one of the...
Unless you do like me and put an open observable in there and then can't figure out why it never resolves.
Yeah, so one really important thing here is if you have an observable, to always make sure that it completes. And of course, when you're using the HTTP client, it will automatically complete, but you can always do like first here or something. So you know that it actually completes.
And if you put an observable in your resolver and it doesn't ever complete and the page never loads, we call that pulling a Bonnie.
Okay. That's interesting. So, should we continue or?
Yes. No, that was
okay.
Let's continue. Sorry.
Okay, perfect. No, it's not a problem. It's actually a pleasure. Okay. So we connected our resolver, and hopefully now, whenever I enter the root, actually, let's see how we can actually get the data. Here inside the root configuration, what I've done is that I used the resolve, and I said that for this resolver, I want this data to be linked to this name. So whenever I enter the component inside the constructor, getting the data from the activated root, I can actually get the user list. So this is something that will happen whenever I go to demos and wait for this code to finish. As we see here inside the app component, we actually log the users that we loaded. There they are. So there are a few, I actually want to show that the user list here, it has this delay. And that's why it's so slow, because I want to address certain problems with the resolvers that I don't like. And it will also be very useful whenever we're kind of loading data to see how it actually loads without throttling the network, because whenever the Angular is refreshing, if we throttle the network, it's very annoying that our application is not loading. So let's go to, for example, Google, and then go to our application, but go to the About page. And now, one of the really annoying things is if I click on demos, what will happen is that actually the resolver will get code, and we're going to start waiting for to resolve our data. So I'm clicking here, but I won't actually wait for this data to get loaded. I'm actually going to click the back button. So I click here and I go back. And where do I land? I land in Google. So this is something that it's not very good user experience. And this is one of the things that I actually started thinking more and more how we can actually remove those resolvers from our application. And my first idea was actually to get inside the resolver and just to have the call to load the users and actually let the resolver resolve. And this was okay. I mean, we are entering the root and everything was working fine. But one other thing that is very complicated with resolvers is that you have no actually, it's very hard to follow what is resolved and what hasn't resolved. And then if you're resolving multiple things, you had to create these counters to count in the individual requests that are finished and the ones that are being still processed. And it was just a really, really big mess. And one other thing that I really don't like about resolvers is that you cannot actually explicitly call them and say, okay, I want to get this data re-resolved, or how should I say it, just to get refetched. And you can only do this by actually changing the URL. And this is something that it was super annoying for me. So we decided to, yep.
really quick, can we just go over that problem just a little bit more in detail? The one that you showed really quick before we dive into it. So basically,
refreshing.
Yeah. So basically, you went to an Angular route, the about page.
Sure. And I'm going to the about page. Here it is.
And then you want to navigate to the demos. And when you click on that, the route is not going to get resolved until the resolve data is completed. So if you hit the back button like you did before the resolve is completed, Angular never actually navigates that route. So it didn't get a new URL history entry into the browser. So we never left the about page. So if the user clicks the back button, that's why you ended up on Google. And so that's one of the challenges that you're bringing up with waiting for the routes to resolve, the resolvers to resolve, is that the user could take interaction that could put them in an odd state that they don't understand what just happened, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it's very annoying.
You wrote the library. You've been looking at this for a while. The rest of us are going, wait, what? Hold on. It seems easy for you.
It looks very logical for me. I mean, I've been using resolvers, so I know what the problems are. But yeah, I guess for other people who haven't used them, it might be a little bit scary. But yeah, this is what happens. Now we're trying to resolve the data, and we click back, and we end up at Google just because we haven't actually entered the new route that we want to go into. So yeah,
whereas
this is one of the
problems. Whereas if the data had resolved, where would we have ended up?
So if the data gets resolved, we're just going to end up here in the demos, and we're actually going to see the title of the component here, user list, and we're actually going to see the list here locked. So yeah.
And at that point, the navigation is completed. The browser has a new entry for a new navigation. And now if the user hit the back button, they would go back to the about route right at that point.
Yep, exactly.
But there's no real way to identify that like the user aborted out of a resolve experience, right? So we don't have
actually there is a way. We tried multiple ways of doing this. So you can actually plug into the router navigation events, and then you can understand if the user navigated away. But it's extremely hard to manage if you have multiple resolvers and just know that you have to do certain things. It was very painful because we are usually working on really huge and like applications, and it's a no-no. I mean, we tried all kinds of ways, and then I just decided to look at things in a completely different way. And this is what I'll be showing today.
Cool.
So
I don't know if you're ever going to get to it with us interrupting you every few minutes.
I know, right? Sorry about that.
I already have like a few demos that I've created. I just put them here with underscores. So hopefully I can show you the basic stuff, and the more complex I can just uncomment them and just present them. So
yeah, we're gonna.
And I'd like to welcome our next panelist as well.
Hey, Mike Brocky.
Hello.
I have been resolved asynchronously.
Mike, were you in our YouTube chat and in the meeting at the same time, Mike Brocky?
I would not like to comment on that question.
That is funny. How long did it take you to come up with that intro, Mike?
On the spot.
That was clever.
It's early in the year. I've got some fresh ones early in the year, but they'll fade off as the year goes on.
Have you met Iliya? You know Iliya. He's trying to get through a demo, and we've been stopping him like every.
God help him. Cool, we will not let him get through it.
Iliya's got a lot to show us. Poor Iliya.
Look, we had to understand the problem. Now we understand the problem. So now, yeah, what's the solution?
Yeah.
If not, then we'll do another episode. Part 2.
We're all gonna mute Iliya and let you have some peace.
Okay. So let's continue. So as I said, we're completely going to remove the resolvers just because they have certain issues that we already pointed out. So I'm just going to comment it here, and I'm going to create one other resolver it's not going to be blocking so much the view. So what I have to do, I mean, I already installed it, but I'm just going to show. I'm going to do yarn hg resolvers at latest, and this will install the latest version. I mean, I already have it, so it should be very quick. And now I'm just going to extend one class. It's called resolver. So I'm going to say import resolver from HG resolvers.
Missed an L. Okay, and I'm sorry. I know I said I wouldn't interrupt you again, but why do you have 2 resolvers?
No, I'm going to. I completely remove the other one. I
Gotcha.
commented out, so it's
Okay.
not going to be working anymore because it's very annoying. And now I'm going to be using the new resolver. I'm just going to say extends resolver, and here I have to give it a generic. This is going to be actually the value that we're going to be resolving. And here I'm going to say constructor, and inside the constructor, I'm going to do pretty much the same. I'm going to get the user service. I'm going to say user service, and then I have to call the super, of course. And here I actually have to provide a few things. So the first argument is the target function. This is actually going to be the function that is going to be called whenever we want to resolve the data. So here what I'm going to do is basically say user service.load users. This means that the function will actually return this observable. And pretty much this is all I have to do for now. And now I have to actually provide this directive inside the module. So I come here and I'm actually going to uncomment it. This is the user list resolver directive. I'm going to uncomment it, and it should basically start working. So how do we use it? We go inside our user list, and what we have to do is basically create, like, for example, a div. And inside the div, we actually have to use this selector that we gave here. So let's say app user list resolver. And what this will actually create, this will actually create my directive, and at a certain point, it will actually call the resolve method. We can actually configure when this resolve method is called, and we can actually call it ourselves. So there are multiple ways of actually doing this. But what the cool thing is that we can actually, because if you noticed, I exported this directive by this name, I actually can get the template reference variable with containing this directive, and I can actually present the data that it holds. So how is this done? Pretty much we go here, we say that we want to have this user list resolver, like that. We want to get it, and here inside what we want to do is basically say user list resolver dot data, maybe something like async, and then JSON. And this will actually present our data inside the view whenever it's resolved. So this is, I think, very useful. But what we actually want, because whenever I enter the view now, I see that it's no, just because I haven't actually resolved anything. So my data is initially no. I want to be able to call this resolver whenever it actually is initialized. So what I want to do here is maybe resolve, say resolve on init. I think this is how it was. Equals to true. Oh, actually, no, I forgot. This is actually, we have to put it inside the resolver. We can do it either this way, like using an input, or just say resolve or on init true. And this will allow the resolver to actually resolve after it's created. So currently the users are being loaded, and at a certain point we should actually see the users, hopefully, or no. Maybe I did something wrong. Let me just see, user list components. Can I actually?
You have to make at least one mistake when you're live streaming on YouTube.
Service.
It's like the law.
Let's see if the user service actually being called. No, it's not. So probably I've actually, let me just rebuild the Angular, because maybe for some reason it didn't get injected inside the app module. I can see it here. So we'll see. Hopefully it will start working. No.
Is the resolver still fine on the browser right now?
Why is it not working?
I apologize.
Mike, are you covering your mic? You sound weird and far away.
For some reason, it's not working. I'm not sure why. It should
Mike
actually
has
be
the
working.
answers. We just can't hear him. He's gonna have to like mime it out.
No,
and we'll
is that
debug.
better?
Yes.
Yep. Yep.
New year, my app or my laptop was trying to use a different microphone. Is the resolver still set up on the route definition right now, or no?
No, this is actually a directive that we currently developed. So the other resolver is missing, and this is actually the resolver that we want to be able to call. So inside here, inside the user list, what I want to happen is basically to get this directive initialized by using this, and then pretty much just resolving it.
Yeah, I was just double checking that you commented out the other one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but
okay.
it wouldn't hurt us still.
True.
The problem is that for some reason, user list resolver, it's not being called. So let's see if it's actually constructed. We see that it's constructed, but we don't go inside the constructor. That's really strange. Why not? Oh, okay, now we enter the constructor. Okay, so let's see if we're actually going to go inside the function. So here we come. Okay, we entered somewhere where I didn't want to go actually.
Can you go back to your editor? One thought.
Okay, I think let me just quickly do something. Let's add a button, but because I think that I might have created a bug that I pushed a few hours before the event.
Fergus Gallagher's in the chat. He'll have the answer.
Hold on, the constructor parameter on the parent resolver. Can you go back to the IntelliSense on that? Doesn't that take? Oh, it's taking in just the function and it's returning that observable. Okay.
Yeah,
so you are passing in a function there.
So I think I just created a bug. So I'm just going to create a button that will actually resolve it. So let's say resolve. And here what I'll do is get this variable and just call the resolve method. And I think that it should start working. So let's see the button and yeah,
drum roll.
Hopefully. So we call the resolve, we enter the load users, and then after like few minutes, this actually is going to get rendered. We're going to see all of the users. Yeah, so I think that I actually created a bug, so I'm going to fix it after the
We never doubted Iliya.
Yeah. So this is cool because whenever we want, we can actually click resolve and we are going to refetch the data and just present it. So it's very useful. But what else we can actually do is from this template variable, we can actually present like an error if an error happens. So we can do something like diff and say ngIf, something like resolver dot maybe is resolved successfully. Until it's resolved successfully, what we want to be doing is saying loading or something. And maybe if it's resolved successfully, we actually want to like show the data we have. So we can actually do like a lot of things. And here, actually, now we're going to be seeing the loading, and after a while, we are going to actually see the data. Hopefully, maybe I should.
Did you click the button?
No, actually, I forgot. Yeah, I always think that they're going to just start resolving in it, but yeah, this is something that I'll fix after the demo. So yeah, you can see how actually the resolver is working, and it's the cool thing is that it's inside the view, and whenever you actually want to resolve something, you can see it right where it should be inside the view. It's very helpful. So here we actually are having a single resolver, but what we can do is create a container, and this container can actually contain multiple resolvers. So we can actually attach the resolvers
as many
to a
as we
container.
want, or should we have like a limited?
No, you can attach you can attach as many as you want, like 5, 10, 11, doesn't matter. So in order to use this container, we must actually import inside our module, this HG resolver module. This will allow us to use this component or directive. It's called HG resolve. There is another directive, which is HG resolve like that. And you can actually plug these resolvers into this component. So the component is really cool because actually it can hold a few other values. Like, for example, we can create an ng template. And this ng template, we can use it for example, like something like a loader. And here inside the ng template, we can access variables like something like show loading. And here we can create a div and then say ngIf show loading, then present with the loading, something like that. And one other really cool thing is that you can have an error template and say show error, and here we can get all the errors like with this this variable from the context called errors. So here we actually have multiple errors because inside the resolver, usually you use it with more than one resolver, right? Inside the resolve container. And this is why you actually get an array of errors. So here, what we are going to do is maybe we can do something like this. If there is like an error, just present the error like that. And what we have to do now, I'm going to quickly comment out this. Then I'm going to say, okay, resolve on init. This is working 100%. So hopefully we're going to see it actually loading whenever the view is ready. And what I'm going to do is quickly get this resolver and attach it to this hgresolve container. And here inside, what we can do is still like present our components data like we did before, just like that. And hopefully, whenever we come here, let's see what is happening. I'm not sure. Yeah, we're seeing the no. Come on, it should be working. Resolve on init, it should be true. I attach the resolver.
Fergus says line 12 is your problem.
Sorry?
Fergus says line 12 is your problem.
Error 0.
Hold on, go back to line 12. You got your.
No, this is, I actually haven't attached the loader and the thing, so I actually have to do something like loader. Loader, what was it? Loader template reference, say loader, and maybe the error template reference is going to be the error. And I'm not sure why it's not actually showing. It's only showing the no. Let's see what actually we're seeing. If this is the thing that why it's not working? Let me rebuild it really quickly, because I'm not sure what we are seeing currently.
Where does that HD container element come from? Is it, do you have to import a module or anything?
Yes, I just imported this HG resolver module, and you have it inside. So okay, now it seems like it's working. The only thing is that it's not loading the data again. Oh, that's interesting. I guess I have made like a serious bug somewhere, because it was just working when I was testing it.
That's because you weren't live on YouTube.
Resolve. Yeah, usually this is what happens. But it should be resolving on init. But anyways, if it's not resolving, then I'll just use my button here and just quickly show how we can resolve it. So here, if I want to get like a reference to the hgresolve, I'll just say resolve like this and say hgresolve. And with the hgresolve, I have also the resolve method. And I can actually do basically the same thing. So we click it and come on, what's going on? Super slow. I think I should kill my Chrome or something. It's like very. Let me just try to create it again to open it.
Where does the ngResolve tag come from?
It comes from this module. The module from the library, actually.
This is the one that you built?
Yeah.
It's called ngResolve or hgresolve?
H, with an H. So
it's hgresolve.
Yeah.
Yeah,
this is
those are inches.
our signature of our company, so that's why it's HG.
I had my
But
screen
I'm
too
really
small.
like
I thought it was...
I'm really surprised that this is not working. I'm not sure why it's not working, because I can. Okay, since we're running out of time, I'm just quickly going to actually comment this and just show the examples that I already had built, because we're running out of time and I really don't understand why it's not working. So I'm quickly going to do like that. So pretty much they're all the same. And this thing, I'm just quickly going to remove it and rename this to dash resolvers. And I'm just going to explain by example, by uncommenting and like commenting code, because we're kind of like running out of time. I'm not sure what's going on and why nothing is working, but yeah, the demo gods are not with me today. Okay, we're going to rebuild the application, and here we should not see actually anything. So first, let's start with, no, let's see this one with the container. So I'm just going to uncomment it. And here inside the resolvers, let's see. So we have two resolvers. One is the post list resolver, the user list resolver. We also have another one that we're actually not going to be using. So here I'm going to actually go into the about page, and whenever I enter the demos, we're actually going to see the loading. This is actually the resolver container. Now we're loading the data, both the user list, and underneath we have the other thing, I think. Is it only one? Oh no, this is a single resolver example, yeah. So pretty much this is the demo that I wanted to show. We have our two templates, the loading and the errors. So whenever we get an error, we're going to present the error inside the container. And whenever we're loading, we're going to present the loader. And if we have everything loaded successfully, we're going to present the data. So yeah, this was, I'm not sure why now it's working. That's really interesting, but yeah.
I noticed you had a provider in there in your resolver. Is that maybe?
Yeah,
why?
this is something else. This is actually something else. Oh yeah, oh, I totally forgot about this. So yeah, I had to provide the thing. So this is why it was not working. So let me just quickly explain how it works, so we can actually understand what is this and what it's doing. Do you guys know what that is? I mean, have you created template-driven form validations? So pretty much this is the same way. This is how it works. So here we have the container, and the container pretty much collects all the connected to it resolvers. So in order to collect them, we have to multi-provide them. And this is how we do it. We basically, on the directive itself, we pretty much say we want to provide the AG resolvers. This is a custom template injection token. We must say that it's multi too, true, because we might have more than one resolver. And we also want to use the already created directive. It's already created just because Angular created it. So this is how the container, it actually collects all the connected to it resolvers and pretty much resolves them. So yeah, this is what I forgot. I actually am thinking to create a schematic that automatically generates the code, so you don't have to write it yourself. So this is something that is still missing. So this, do you guys understand it? What do you think? Is it like, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, so it's really cool. So it's basically the concept of providing like some resolve logic, but not having it connected to the router at this point.
Exactly. It's connected to the place inside the template where it's actually going to be shown. And whenever we go to the template, it's much easier to understand what is going to be shown in this particular spot and why and what is happening. I mean, at least for me, it's super easy to understand. So let's quickly view the other demo, which is like the one with multiple resolvers connected. This is this one. So here, what we actually have is the same thing, but we extra have the post list resolver. And currently, if I save it, what is going to happen is that now we're waiting for the users to load first the users are actually going to emit. So here you're going to see the users probably emitting somewhere about now. Come on. They should emit at certain points. I'm not sure. Ah, come on, this demo is just not working again.
I want you to know that you have impressed me and taught me many times. So don't feel down on yourself because this happens anytime someone goes live, and you are
Come
doing
on.
awesome.
Well, I'm not sure. Like, I really tested it out, but I think that something like is going on with my Angular or something. Because, I mean, of course, blame it on Angular. No,
So
I'm
when
not sure.
When you have multiple resolvers, is it resolving those independently? And is it
Yeah,
like if the posts come back first, are we seeing content for the post first? Or is
No.
that container holding all of them until they're all resolved?
No, so the idea is when you're actually connecting them to the container will actually show loading will actually disappear whenever all the resolved things are just loaded. So this is why you shouldn't actually see anything here until we actually have the data loaded. But for some reason, I think that what was the flag? Oh, actually, I think I know why it's not loading. I'm missing the resolve on init here. Can you imagine?
So yeah, so I guess one of the cool things here was
there it is.
Cool.
Now we loaded the users, and now we see the posts here as well. There should be somewhere underneath, but we cannot differentiate them. Ah, there they are. So yeah.
One of the cool things with that is that, like, if we said we're going to write our own loading of users and our own loading of the posts, and we do that with our own little maybe observables and stuff like that, we don't have a way really to tie in and say, hey, look, block until they're all done, right? I mean, we can do it. We have to handcraft that. And so that's one of the benefits of this library is that, hey, we have something out of the box that allows us to say, here's all the data I want to resolve, one to many. And then I don't want to display this block of the UI until all of those are done. I don't have to write the plumbing for that. It's just handled here. That's really cool.
Yes, exactly. And one other thing that you can actually control individually these things here. So, for example, you can reuse them. So here, as you see, you're providing a function, and this function you can call like different functions based on, for example, inputs of this directive. And you can really control everything really nice and reuse it across your application. You can just create different resolvers for all of your entities, and you can reuse them just because they're directives. So it's really cool.
Now the resolvers for the routing can support an observable, a promise, or just straight data. Does this do the same thing, or is it just observables?
So it's just observables, just because, I mean, I love observables, and this is something that, I don't know, we use everywhere in our applications, and there is like a reason why they're actually observables, because we kind of depend on RxJS here, kind of. In the next few examples, I'll explain what I mean.
So if we had like a resolver where we said we want to just take some input and then calculate a value and then return that as the resolver data, we would have to essentially wrap that in an observable of call or something in order to plug it into this, right?
Sorry, I didn't actually understand.
So let's say our resolver that we're creating doesn't do any type of like HTTP call or something like that. It maybe took in some data and just calculated a value and then wants to hand that out as a resolved value.
Yeah,
right?
You should just provide an observable here. I'm not sure why you would use a resolver for this, but yeah, you should just provide the value here with some off or from or whatever.
Hey, Iliya, can you provide us that GitHub link again?
Yeah, let me just share it after we finish the demos, because I see that we're running out of time, and I really want to like show the cool things, right? Okay.
Yes.
Perfect. So let's observe a more complicated example. I'm not going to show the other one. Let's see, for example, this thing. We have a more complicated resolver here. So let me just see if we have resolver on init, because if we don't have it, we're not going to see anything. Let's see it's true. So this here is like a more complicated resolver. What it does is actually it has a dependency. So usually the dependency should be an observable. And here what I'm doing is I'm providing an input, and this input is going to be a number. So actually I created this decorator. It says to observable, and whenever we provide like a value, it just wraps it inside an observable, so we can actually use it here inside the second argument that we're providing. This means that we're just going to say, okay, I want this thing, which is the selected user, to be provided, and whenever this call gets called to load the data, I want to get this ID and load the posts for this user ID. And one other really cool thing is that you can actually skip resolvers by providing the skip value. This means that whenever we don't have like an ID for the user, we don't have to resolve this resolver. We don't have to call it. And whenever this like should skip changes, then we'll be able to call it at a certain point. So this is like a way to just skip resolvers, and for the container, which is the resolve container, to know that this resolver is not active currently. And we also have like a configuration for the resolvers. So you can actually say, by providing auto resolve, you actually kind of like disconnect the resolve functionality from the resolve container, but you provide it. You say basically, I want you to auto resolve whenever this observable changes. This means that whenever this input, like the selected user ID, changes, I want you to call the resolve function automatically, just because we want to change the data and we don't have to do anything like other than just change the binding. Hopefully you understand. You'll probably see in the example. So here I'm loading the users. Still loading, but they're going to show just because I have this delay. And here you can see all the users. So now what I'm going to do is here, this input, I'm going to provide a user ID. And whenever I click the select button, this what will do is trigger reload. This means that this box will say loading. And after everything is loaded, currently the users are not being refetched, but the user post actually gets refetched. I mean, it gets loaded. It gets loaded. And whenever we are actually changing, I mean, probably you can imagine how you can use this. If you had like a table, for example, you can click like a row, and depending on the row, you can set the selected user ID. This thing will actually start like resolving, and will load the data from the server. So this example, like, it's not the best one. It's not the best looking. So I'm just going to quickly show you the last one. It's pretty much the same, but it's a little bit more like complicated. But since I see that we don't have a lot of time left, I just want to like uncomment it so I can show you what kind of stuff you can do here. Let me just see. So pretty much we have the users. As you see, they loaded successfully, and underneath you can what we want to do is pretty much present the post for a certain user. So what I'm going to do here is quickly just type an ID for the user. I'm going to select it, and here you can actually see that we're presenting a spinner, and we're actually not hiding this content that we already have rendered, right? This is very like user friendly, because you actually see that something is happening here because you have the spinner, but you actually don't see the loading here. And whenever you see the load, whenever like the content is loaded, you actually present the user with the stuff that they actually want to see. So I don't know. I mean, this is something that we actually have to do in our application a lot. Like have different, for example, spinners located in different sections of the page, and we actually have to reuse certain data and places and stuff like that. So you can actually control everything by using this library and this like resolvers.
Very cool. I want to bring up a point here because I know I think a lot of people might be thinking like, wow, this seems complex. Like, how is this different, from doing the resolvers and the route? What's the benefit here? What's some other benefits here and stuff like that? One of the things I think to think about here is that when we do resolvers with the route, that means we have to rely on routing, right? Routing has to be in place. what if we are building our component that we want to share as an Angular element that lives just as an element on a page somewhere else, right? How would we handle resolving data when we don't have the router in play? Well, this type of solution could be a solution for that, right? Could be an answer for that. To provide
it could, yeah.
Managing loading data in that same kind of concept, but without the dependency on the router to do so.
So the main problem is with the router and the normal resolvers is how do you count how many like requests have you sent, and how do you actually present a spinner like this one here, and when do you know to to hide the spinner, because it's very hard. You have to count all the dispatch requests that you have created, and here it's very easy because whenever we are separating the logic in this directives, basically we know how many requests we dispatch. We know whenever something completes, and this is actually, you can use it not only with normal services, you can actually attach it to an ngrx, and you can just put certain actions and certain events that actually complete the resolving and stuff like that. So it's pretty much, we usually use it with ngrx, and this is not something that, for example, like a normal project would use. I mean, it's developed for really big and complex projects where you have a lot of data that you have to resolve, and you have a lot of spinners that you have to show in different locations of the page and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, it looks pretty complex just because it is kind of complex, but once you get it, it's really easy and it's really useful. We've seen a huge improvement in speed and just user experience at all in our applications by using those kind of resolvers. And this is one of the things that's why I wanted to present it, just because if there are other people who have problems with similar problems, they might find it useful and they might want to contribute. And this is something that I want to make it easier to work with and just develop it better. Who knows? I mean,
nice. What's the URL for? It's on GitHub, right?
Yeah, so it's basically GitHub/Iliya Idakiev HG Resolvers. But yeah, if you type in npm HG Resolvers, you're also going to find it. And here you can find all the demos documented and stuff like that. So I mean, if you have any questions, you can reach out and I'll help you with any problems.
We'll throw the link up in the description. I also put it at the bottom of the screen. Sorry, Mike, it's covering your face. But yeah, so that's there too.
So yeah, pretty much you also have a lot of other functionality. I'm just quickly going to zoom out because it's a lot of text, but you can have this dynamically attached resolvers to a container. This is very useful. For example, if you have a lot of ngIf that are hiding certain places, and you want actually, whenever this place gets visible, to attach a resolver, you also have the ability to connect different resolvers that are on different parts of the page in one single container. And yeah, I mean, just a lot of things that are pretty much not very needed in simple applications, but very needed in complex ones. This demo that I am just showing, I'm going to actually post on GitHub so everybody can play around with it and hopefully receive some feedback, like bugs and stuff like that.
And contribute. Maybe people will contribute.
Yeah, and contribute, yeah. Of course. Yeah, do we have more time? I mean, how much?
We're getting to the top of the hour, so
yeah,
we got
okay.
2 more minutes.
We have 4 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, so pretty much I showed you what this library is capable of. Hopefully, you guys will like it and maybe use it. But let me just show you this this thing here. So we have this container. This container pretty much uses the attach directive. This means that all the resolvers that are on this container are going to be attached to the main resolve container here. And this is very useful because the resolve container, we actually know whenever these directives are getting like loaded or errored or something, and you can actually present a spinner or present like a bar saying that something went wrong and stuff like that inside this container. And in the case, for example, if you have multiple boxes that are like showing or hiding, and depending on certain like things inside your query params, you might see two like similar things, or you might not see them. You can actually creating this, like for example, user post resolver. You can actually say that these resolvers have auto unique ID. This means that all the resolvers like created inside a container are pretty much going to be interconnected with each other. This is because we don't want to actually create multiple requests and, for example, send multiple requests for the same data from different resolvers. So pretty much we just bundle them, and one sends the data and all of the other just get the data. And yeah, this is like for a really complex scenario where you have a lot of like individual boxes that depend on different, on different and the same kind of data. So yeah, I mean, a lot of like options too.
Yeah, it does a lot of stuff. I think it's something that people need to marinate on, right? And almost like see an example comparison, right? If you go down the road, I can start seeing this. Like if I go down the road of I'm writing this component that has to resolve several pieces of data from services, and I want to use the async pipe inside of my template, and I want to, do that in different places. Like if I do that manually just out of the Angular box, and then I compare that with this type of solution, I can see where this can help provide a lot of that plumbing that I'd have to manually do, right? And solve these scenarios that you talk about when you do like an ng container with an ngIf for the async to get a hold of that in the template, all these kind of things. So it solves a lot of those challenges that we face or that we repeat and do. So
yeah, I think it would be a service for people who are at least considering this, who's come across your repo, to put potential use cases as like a section within there of like, this would be a good solution for ... or you might want to use this if ... and have even different people who are utilizing the library to be able to express how and why they decided to use it.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I already like, probably if the demos were a little bit more pretty, it would be more like useful, but I just didn't have time to create spinners and tables and stuff like that.
I was going to comment earlier, but I didn't want to interrupt, but that was probably the best spinner I've ever seen. Like that's like 400 level CSS right there.
See, it's spinning, right? Like there it is.
Sick.
This is how I do demos. I mean, I don't have time to play around with CSS.
I honestly, I thought you did it intentionally. I thought you were like making it so basic that it's like you're going to focus on what we're talking about and not on like this pretty UI. I thought it was intentional whenever you first started. So
I will actually create a better UI, promise, whenever I push it.
All right, it was very cool. Very cool. We're at the top of the hour, so we better wrap up. We got the link up there. We showed it. We shared it in the chat. We'll put it on the description to the library. So we should be all set on that. Let's do some quick picks, and then we'll call it a day. If anybody has any picks, we'll go down through our panelists first. Alyssa, you got a pick?
Yes. So I speed read at the beginning of the year, The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up. Some of you probably have seen Marie Kondo's Netflix show. But I read the book, which is so much more detail. And for me, it was much better than the show. And I think I've gotten rid of over 50 bags of items so far. The book says on average, clients take about 6 months to like go through their entire home. So it could be a while, but initially we're off to a great start. And I already do feel a change in our household because
I love her so much.
I know, she's so amazing, but I can find things easier now. I'm like, oh my gosh, this outfit that I love, or this, whatever, like, because I've actually pared my items down to only the ones that bring me joy. So if you
and then you open your closet and it's like, oh yes.
Yeah, I love it. So if you are looking to become more minimalistic or just to tidy up, I definitely recommend the book. So, yeah.
I second that recommendation.
Very cool. All right. Other panelists, anybody else have a pick?
I have one real quick. I had a book last year called The Full Focus Planner that I really, really loved. This year, I actually did a whole New Year's planning kick, and I had a really good time thinking about my goals for 2020, and it was actually really cool. But I didn't do it on paper. This year I went technical. Got an iPad and GoodNotes, which is really cool. I downloaded a template. So if you haven't checked out GoodNotes, and also Procreate is like a Photoshop kind of looking thing for the iPad. It was like $9.99, worth absolutely every penny. I really love it. So check out Procreate and GoodNotes for the tablet. Those are mine.
What's appropriate? Procreate?
Procreate. It's like it's a thing for the tablet. It's like a sketching pad, and it has like 100 different. You can have like charcoal and pencils and watercolor and felt tip pens and brush pens and like all these.
I'm with you now.
It's a really cool interface for the tablet, so you can like draw and then if you combine Procreate with GoodNotes, and then you have like 1 million different YouTube videos about bullet journaling and planning, and it's like a whole thing. Yeah, I might need another week off just for that.
Awesome. Mike, do you have any picks today?
No, I don't.
All right, I got one for you.
I was racking my brain trying to think, but I got nothing today.
We can share mine. All right, I have a pick.
My pick is Justin's pick.
There we go. So my pick is our good friend Minko Getchev. He started a podcast called Programming, and he knows a few things about that. So he's got a lot of, I'm sure, excellent information to share. So check that out.
Where do we go? I love Minko.
Yeah, looks like it's on iTunes, Spotify, etc. I'll put a link in the description of this video too, or you could just Google Minko Programming. You'll probably find it. But yeah, interested to check that out. So that was Mike and I's pick. Iliya,
can I have picks as well?
Yes, you get the most picks.
Oh, okay. So my pick is actually something that I started in December. Inspired by Mike and Justin, I started like a YouTube channel. So I started like creating videos. The channel is called Commit.js, like commit, like GitHub commit. And pretty much the first week are going to be broadcasting the 6th episode this Saturday. In the 6th episode, we're going to be creating a work loop. Pretty much the idea of the first episode is creating a similar library to Angular, but using web components. And we're also using lit HTML, one really, really cool library, a very small one. So if somebody is interested in how you can actually develop a front-end network framework, pretty much you can watch their broadcasted live. So I do a lot of bugs, but I fix them after that. So yeah, this is one of the picks, and I have another pick. Is like one game that I used to play when I was really young. It's called, I played it just before the episode so I can refresh my mind. It's called Pipe Dream. Basically, I used to play it like on a really old Microsoft computer.
I'm imagining like Mario pipes. What is it?
Can you share my screen? Pipe Dream is online. Is this one? Is actually you have to create like a pipeline, and you have to be very fast because there's like this liquid that starts like flowing, and yeah, there it is, Windows 3, and yeah, pretty much is very fun. Something like that, but you have to be very careful because when the liquid starts like flowing, you don't have a lot of time, so you have to create a really like good pipeline.
Pipe Dream, that's wonderful.
I love this because this is how I try to explain observables to people. It's how data flows through.
Yep, exactly. It's pretty much like an observable, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, this is it. If you guys are interested, you can play around with it. I don't know, but it's I used to play it when I was young. Not that I'm not young still, but okay, guys. Justin. Justin is muted.
Justin's muted.
Or is he? Maybe I should take control of the show now.
Justin.
Come
All
on.
right, his mic is not responding, so I'm going to sign us out.
That's a wrap, guys.
Do
Iliya,
it.
thanks for joining us to talk about async resolvers, and we will catch you on the next episode.
Thank you very much, guys, for the opportunity.